All right, folks, we are immediately, while you're grabbing your message notes, turning to Daniel chapter 1, we are going to show you a really weird video. So direct your attention to the screens, but I'm going to talk a little bit during it, so let's roll it. While you're looking at this, go ahead and pull your message outline out. That way we're ready to roll. And if you're wondering what's going on here, this is a state-of-the-art $1,000 front-load dryer, which I wish I had. And all they did was take one brick and put it in the dryer. New, good-shaped dryer. Anybody have a front-load dryer? Anybody wish they had a front-load dryer? They just put one brick in a $1,000 new dryer, just one brick, just to see what would happen. And just so y'all know, this video is not sped up. This is exactly how long it takes for one brick to have a slight impact on a dryer. We thought about actually doing this live on stage, but Jason Eldridge would not give me his dryer. Watch this. This is where it really gets interesting. This is one of the reasons we did not do this on this stage. Watch what happens next. Oh, it's not done. That was not, folks, a brand new $1,000 front load dryer, which I wish I had. One simple brick was put in it, and 2 minutes and 7 seconds later, it has self-destructed completely. The whole theme of that is this. If you let one thing get put in your life, you self-destruct and your entire future's wrecked. Does that make sense? One thing, okay? And you take a look at the last 16 months, the last several years even, but folks, wouldn't you agree, lots of you have had bricks thrown into your life. The brick of fear, the brick of discouragement, the brick of despair, the brick of guilt, the brick of whatever it is that has been thrown into your life. You didn't want it there, but it got thrown into your life, and all of a sudden, game changed everything. That we are beginning a very serious, hard-hitting book of Daniel series. Y'all ready for this? Okay, and so you grab your notes, turn to Daniel chapter 1, but we're gonna do a 3-week series on You're Not the Boss of Me, and the entire theme of this series is this. We actually wanna protect you from 3 major things getting thrown into your life, because when they enter, joy exits, okay? Next week, we're gonna talk about fear and anxiety and dread, which is at all-time highs getting thrown into your life. The week after that, we're gonna talk about discouragement and despair and the destruction that can bring when you just let that one thing get thrown in your life. Today, this is going to be fascinating. We're going to read Daniel chapter 1. I'm going to read the entire thing, okay? And we're going to read Daniel chapter 1, and all we're going to do is ask one question, okay? Daniel, picture this for a second, okay? Do you know anybody that's moved out of the state of California? Raise your hand if you know anybody, okay? Do you know any Christians that have moved out of the state of California to a safer state, okay? Imagine this. Imagine whoever's in charge of California decides, I'm gonna forcibly get these people back. And they go over and they capture people out of Texas and Tennessee and Arizona and Fresno, foreign countries even. And they haul them back and they basically go, we are going to Californize these people with everything we got. That actually happened in the Bible. Daniel chapter 1, grab your notes. It's on the front of it. Turn to Daniel chapter 1 in your Bible. If you're new here, by the way, and you're wondering, who are we about? We're a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church, so here we go, people. You all ready? Okay? And verse 1, in the year of the reign of King Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, now, they're in God's country, Judah, okay? Their faith values are intact. They're in a place where their culture reaffirms their values. It's Judah, Judaism, all this kind of stuff. In the third year of the reign of King Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, okay, came a totally pagan city. Babylon was actually named after a pagan god. That tells you what it's like, okay? So Babylon attacks Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar comes and besieges it, and the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, instead, so he wins, okay? And then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the kids' service. Like they're going, let's kidnap some of these people and take them back to Babylon. So they kidnap 4 teenage guys. Do we have any teenagers in here? A ton of them right there, okay? These guys are all about 15 years old. They are high school sophomores, and they get hauled to Babylon, okay? Notice what happens next, okay? The young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for others, they're basically going, let's pick the best looking, the brightest, the sharpest, kind of like the whole section that stands there. And they go, they're quick to understand, they're well-informed, they're qualified to serve in the king's palace. Whoa, big deal. Among those who were chosen were from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Now, those are their names then. They're about to change that. Okay, the chief official then gave new names to Daniel, the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, now, look at the chart on your right, just to catch you up with sort of what's going on here. Historically, the setting for the book of Daniel is this: 606 BC, Nebuchadnezzar assaults Jerusalem. Okay, now, 20 years later, Jerusalem's assaulted and the entire thing is wiped out. Okay, now, Babylon, they haul him to Babylon. It was one of the 7 wonders of the world named after a Babylonian god. Now, Daniel and his friends, 4 world-class teenagers, are taken captive to a city of Babylon, a city full of idol worship, sex, and violence. Okay, and what's interesting is this: Daniel and his friends are about 15 years old, and on the first day of school, they have to decide, holy smokes, this ain't Texas anymore. We're gonna have to take a stand. Do they or don't they? Because here's what's going on. It's Operation Erase and Replace. They get hauled to Babylon, and on purpose, they intentionally intend to erase all their faith values and replace them with secular Babylonian values. Does this sound familiar? The American educational system, sometimes the California education system, has moved from education to indoctrination, okay? And so what's going on here is this: it's the same thing. It's just now 4,000 years later. Never changes. So do they hold up or do they fold up? Do they live with character or do they get corrupted? Look at this. Daniel made up his mind on the first day of school not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And this is cool, but he acts with class. We'll come back to that. He asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. So now God caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, hey, I'm afraid of the king, man. He has signed me your food and drink. If he sees you looking worse than the king's gonna cut off my head. Daniel then said to the guard, we don't care. We're going to obey God. Your head doesn't matter to us. No, Daniel actually is one of those few faith people that actually has class. Notice what he says. Daniel says to the guard, well, yeah, we get that. Test us for 10 days. How about this? Test us for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat. You know, you can tell he's from California. He's a vegan. Yeah, they give us nothing but vegetables to eat. And then he says, and walks through that, and he goes, now, then test our appearance and compare it with the young men who eat the royal food and treat your servants, blah, blah, blah. Verse 15, at the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food, okay? To these 4 young men, God bless. By the way, when you decide, I'm going to honor God, he always decides he's going to honor you. Verse 17, to these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. Verse 18, and at the end of the time set by the king to bring them the service, the chief official presents them to Nebuchadnezzar going, I hope he doesn't cut off my head. And the next verse, then the king talked with him and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king had questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all of the magicians and enchanters and sorcerers in his whole kingdom. Wow. These guys, by the way, what's the point here? Change your name and become a vegetarian? No, the point is this. If you are willing to make God-honoring decisions, you can thrive any place, anytime, no matter how bad the pressure is. Matter of fact, I think sometimes pressure is good. My wife's in here somewhere, probably over there. There she is. Years ago, we were in Southern California, and we're in this tiny little church. This church, when I was the youth pastor there, and when I went there, the church had 100 people, and it exploded to 105 over about a decade, okay? And it was an absolute blast. And so we got there. There was no there were 4 high school kids and 2 junior high kids. So we went, well, we got to build a youth ministry. So we started a junior high ministry, and I love junior high. It's my favorite age group. The great thing about junior hires is they'll do anything. Like, you got to do it. They'll run through a wall. You got to go first, but they'll follow you. And so we start this junior high ministry, and we're like, we got to do something. So we start these breakfasts, and we start doing these breakfasts, and the thing explodes. And we got like 115 junior high kids before school at this free breakfast food every week, and crazy stuff happened there. And what happened is there were 2 junior highs in this town of Duarte, okay? And one of them was a little more upscale junior high. The other one was a little tougher area town, tougher kids. Well, what happened is this. For some reason, all these really attractive, great, world-class 8th grade girls at the more upper class, quote, school started becoming Christians. So all these really cute girls, and then all the toughest guys, for some reason, the toughest guys at the other school started becoming Christians. And these guys were awesome. But I mean, and we were like, we're going after these kids, man. We're going to disciple them. We're going to bring them up. We're going to challenge them to live, all this kind of stuff. So we went after it. Well, what happened is this thing explodes. And I mean, these kids are growing. We bought them Bibles. They start studying them. They're becoming disciples. It's electrifying. And at both schools, and it was kind of cool because the youth ministry exploded because at the one school, all these really amazing girls are going, hey, we go to this thing. Would you like to come with us? At the other school, they're like, hey, we got this breakfast. You're coming, you're coming. You're coming and you're coming. Okay. Because they were the toughest kids in school. Well, what happens is then we did a Wednesday night thing for them. And at the Wednesday night thing, I walked in one time and there's this huge circle of junior high kids. And I go, hey, man, what's up? Because a lot of the girls from the one school are in tears. And they're like, well, we've been getting a lot of flack for our faith. And they said, we're getting pushed around. We're getting like notes sprawled on our lockers. We're getting, and they actually said this, true story, I've never heard it happen anywhere else. An anti-Christian club was formed on our campus. And we're getting, and it's all because of us. And we're losing friends, we're getting shelled because of this thing. Well, these guys from the tougher part of town, they hear these cute girls and they see them in tears and they're like, that sucks. We'll be down tomorrow at lunch. Point them out. We will take care of this in one day. And we're going, by the way, I'm having a ball. This is awesome, okay? And we're going, no, that doesn't. But all these kids are so shook up and everybody's going, isn't this terrible? I never told them. I'm like, this is awesome. Because when these junior hires had to live their faith in an adverse culture, they had to ask the question, is this worth it? Is this worth it? Okay, great things are developed in the valleys, not on the mountaintops, okay? And these guys, here's what happened is they threw everything they could at these kids, okay? I mean, these Babylonians are going, we're gonna make them think like us, we're gonna make them believe like this, we're gonna make them live like us, we're gonna make them act like this. And the point was this, they held up, and I believe this, in any culture, in any state, in any country, at any time, you can walk with God, you can live for God, you can impact for God if you are willing to make the same 3 decisions Daniel made. You all ready? Here we go, okay? Number 1 is this, it's a major question, and these kids had to ask it, and so will you. Here it is. Am I gonna live with convictions or compromise? Am I gonna live with God-honoring convictions, or am I gonna flake out and compromise? And Daniel starts with these phrases. Daniel resolved not to defile himself. The word resolved in Hebrew basically meant, it's a strong chord word. It meant he made up his mind, okay? Now, in other words, he's basically going, I'm gonna live with convictions instead of compromise, okay? Now, let me ask you, what is a conviction? I wanna give you a definition. A conviction is a deeply held belief that guides your life. An opinion is something you'll argue about. A conviction is something you'll live for and die for. That's what a conviction is. And they are fundamentally trying to replace it. Now, this is really important. High school students or the rest of you, whatever stage you're at, what was Daniel's conviction? This is not going to go on the screen, but it might be worth writing down. He just had one conviction. You know what it is? God's ways are better. That's it. God's ways are better. Where do you find that? Read a Bible, okay? I can't find, we're not going to do this morning because I don't have time, but I would love to do this. I would love to go, if you have ever basically taken the Bible, ignored it, walked away from God's ways for your life, and it turned out great, keep standing. I mean, nobody ever stands. Okay? I don't know anybody that's gone, you know what? I'd like to get married, have a series of affairs, and blow up my marriage and have a family. And my goal is to end up divorced and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't know anybody that's gone, you know what? Before I've ever had my first drink, my goal is to become an alcoholic. My goal is to become an addict. Okay? No, you know what he's saying is, Daniel literally is going, here's my core conviction. God's way is better, and so I'm sticking to that. Pressure me all you want. I'm not fun. God's ways are better. And look at the changes they threw at him. I put them in your outline. They changed his home. They changed his location, okay? He didn't get, he's in Tennessee and he gets hauled to California, okay? He's in Texas, he gets hauled to California, okay? And they changed his home. They changed his knowledge. The new educational system, which I think is destructive, but they changed it, okay? They changed his diet. They changed his name, okay? And the name thing was a cruel trick if you understand it, okay? Now, notice I put a chart in so you'll get this, okay? There are 4 names. Daniel in Hebrew meant God is my judge. Here's your name in God's place. It's God is my judge. They changed his name to Belteshazzar. You know what that means? It means Baal protect his life. They rename him after a Babylonian god. Same thing with Hananiah, Mishael. Hananiah, Jehovah's gracious. They rename him Shadrach, which is another Babylonian god. They name a Mishael, who is like God, who is like a coup. They rename him after another heathen god. They rename Azariah to Abigail, which is another heathen god. They threw every single thing they had at them thing. But here's the deal, okay? The Babylonians, they changed their home. They changed their textbooks. They changed their menu. They changed their name. But they could not change his heart. They could not change his heart because he made up his mind. God's ways are better, and I'm walking those ways, okay? Now, I also want to cover this. Would you please write this in? There are 2 extremes he doesn't fall into. There's 2 extremes he does not. Number 1 is assimilation, and the other is isolation, okay? And both of these things are destructive. Assimilation is this. Lots of Christians, they're like chameleons. They basically cave in. They're so assimilated into modern culture, you can't tell the difference between Christians and people that aren't Christians these days because they've let culture suck them in, color them, and they've assimilated them to be politically correct, okay? Or other Christians are going, that's not me. I'm separate from the world, okay? And they're isolated. In other words, they flee, they run, or they figure, matter of fact, I'm just not going to do anything modern. And there are whole groups of faith people where they're going, no snaps, no zippers, no buttons, no anything. Daniel, here's what he agrees to dress Babylonian, get a Babylonian name, he got a Babylonian job, he got a Babylonian education. In a lot of ways, he participated in, now this is very important, he participated fully in Babylonian society. So what was the difference? And here is the difference. Where Scripture said no, he said no. Where Scripture said no, here's his conviction. God's ways are best. Therefore, if Scripture says no, then I'm saying no. By the way, the Bible says there's a line, you can't cross it. At your job, there's a line. On a date, there's a line. Don't cross it. Okay? You're a business person. On a road, there's a line. Don't cross it. With your secretary, there's a line. Don't cross it. In your marriage, there are lines, okay? Don't cross it. And this whole thing is about what's going to drive the decisions I make. Make sense? Now, what I want to do is, I got to talk fast. This is so important. I'm going to put it on screens. Everybody makes decisions. Like high school students, you'll go, like it's Friday night or it's Monday morning at school, or the rest of you, whatever decision you make is going to be because of 4 reasons. So you got to pick the reason I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to put it on the screen. People make decisions for 4 reasons in life. Here, number 1 is this. Some people base their decisions on circumstances, which is what's happening around me. And sort of whatever culture's doing, I just go down that stream. Even a dead fish can flow downstream. Okay, so it's not a great lifestyle. Second is, some people, it's because of convenience. What's easy. That's one of the reasons teenagers and kids have flocked back to church, but adults have not made a decision to flock back to church. Some of them it's health, and I respect that. Some of them it's just, oh, my couch is so easy. Wouldn't you all rather watch us from bed this morning? Yeah, I'm gonna preach from bed sometime, see what happens. Sometimes people make the decisions based on criticism. I'm afraid I'm going to be criticized, and because of that, so they're asking the question, what will people think? Okay, would you raise your hand if you've gotten criticized this year? Yeah, America's gone crazy with criticism, okay? Online stuff unleashed. By the way, I've been telling leaders all around the country this for the last year, so I'm going to give it to you. Y'all, if you've gotten criticized this year, here's my phrase. Never listen to criticism from anyone you wouldn't turn to for wisdom. That's right. Never listen to criticism from people you wouldn't turn to for wisdom, okay? But circumstances, convenience, criticism, and the last one is gold, and here it is. Make your decisions based on convictions, which is what does God say? Because God's way is best, and it will play out that way during your life and for all of eternity. Number 1 is this, am I gonna live with convictions or compromise? Y'all with me, by the way, still? That's the first thing you'll ask. The second question is this, am I gonna live with God-honoring character? The first word is convictions, the second word is character, and Daniel decides I'm choosing integrity, and he resolved not to defile himself. Now, why is that important? Look up here. Why is that important? Because those of you that are parents, those of you that are gonna be parents someday, those of you that are trying to put everything together, grandparents, this is very important, okay? You got convictions and character. What's the difference between convictions and character? Convictions are inner values. Character is lifestyle. Convictions are beliefs. Character is behavior. That makes sense? In other words, convictions are the foundation that you stand on for character. One of the problems in many Christian churches is this. They don't teach convictions and develop convictions. They just teach behavior and character. And so a lot of times, teenagers or adults, they act like Christians on Sunday morning, so they look like they have character, but on Friday and Saturday night, it's a whole different ballgame. Why? Because they act like they have character, but they've never had inner convictions developed. Strong convictions will lead to strong character, and I want to give you, by the way, the other thing is this, if you're going, well, what is integrity anyway? Daniel has a different picture of integrity than we do in American Christianity. And it's 2 things, okay? Right above Daniel, integrity is personal character and also how I treat people. It's personal character and it's how I treat people. And notice the personal character. If you're in business, you're gonna love this. He says this, In Daniel chapter 6, Daniel has risen to be the number 3 guy in the land, and he's still getting flack, so these guys come after him, and they try to charge him with something. So they make up stuff about him, okay, and they charge him, and so they do a little investigation, and it says they could find no corruption. Would you circle those 2 words, no corruption? They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy, and this is awesome, neither corrupt, circle that word, neither corrupt, nor what? Negligent, circle that word. You know what I love about Daniel? Integrity is 2 things. He's not corrupt, but he's also not negligent. In other words, this guy lives with integrity, but he works hard. Some people have personal integrity, they're just lazy. Other people work really hard, they just don't have integrity. Daniel's got both, which is why he rises. And the second one is this. He's got personal character, but integrity is more than just personal character. It's also how I treat people. It's how I treat people. And as I said earlier, the official says to Daniel, man, I'm really afraid that if you guys don't eat this food, then you're going to look worse, and I'm going to get my head chopped off. And what I love about Daniel doesn't go, well, I'm obeying God rather than man. We don't care. No, matter of fact, Daniel served 4 different kings that he had massive belief differences with. 4 different kings in the book of Daniel, okay? And at no point in the book of Daniel can you find Daniel caving in on his faith or demeaning the king. And that combination of personal character and treating people well with class enabled him to rise, and instead of becoming a victim of culture, he got to influence culture. That make sense? That's a really, really big deal. And I love that. By the way, the last time I checked in the Bible, we were supposed to love God. Would you agree? Yeah. But the last time I checked, we're also supposed to love people. That's right. Okay? And I'll give you a couple examples of that. I was with the guy this week, Ted Gaines. Ted, he doesn't know I'm calling him out. Ted's been serving around in this community for years. He was a supervisor, he's a state assemblyman, all that kind of stuff. And so I meet with he and the guy that works for him, his chief of staff. And we struck up a conversation, and the chief of staff and I connected instantly because he was a skeptic. He was an atheist growing up, kind of a hard-charging guy, and he'd become a Christian. And I said, what was it that caused you to become a Christian? And he said, to be really honest with you, I watched Ted love God and care about people for so long. I thought, whatever he has, I need. Amen. And the Jesus he follows is the Jesus I met. That's right. And saw the same thing happen. We have a guy on our board. And this guy on our board, his daughter was getting married, and I'm interviewing the potential son-in-law, and we're having a conversation before the wedding. We're planning out the wedding. And I said, what is it that caused you to become a Christian? And he looked right at me. He said, my respect for my father-in-law. The Jesus he follows is the Jesus I want. And he goes, that's what caused me to become a Christian. I've seen the same thing. I have friends among pastors in this town. One of my favorite pastors and one of the guys I talk to a lot these days is a guy named Rick Cole. Okay, Rick's dad, Glenn Cole, was my main mentor for 10 years, pastor at Capital Christian Center, and I have watched Rick love God, lead that church, but also love people. And matter of fact, I was with him during part of this thing. Rick has just been a great example of somebody that has loved his church and God and the community and placed it at her heart. Matter of fact, a few years ago, Rick took a 3-week break from his church and went down, and instead of doing homeless ministry, lived homeless. Just went, God came to earth. I'm going to walk in there, no frills, and I'm just going to live with homeless people for 3 weeks and get to know them. And I'm going to recommend a book to y'all, okay? I don't make any money off this. Rick doesn't even know I'm talking about this morning. This is a book called Incarnate, Jesus Among the Broken. And it is it's a fun read, but it is an incredible read about a whole side of loving people. And there's some things in here that I hadn't thought about. Even some of the chapter titles are Get the Pastor Off the Streets, okay? Miracle Mattress, No Bath. I mean, there's some stuff in here that is just really an interesting read for all of us who that's never been our experience and likely will never be. But it's that sort of thing where you're going, man, when I actually believe this, when somebody lives with truth and grace, when they love God and love people, the potential impact of them, Daniel becomes the number 3 guy and shapes their culture, okay? Now, when the pressure's on, they live with conviction, they live with character, but the last one is this, they live with God-honoring connections. They live with God-honoring connections. In other words, they don't go it alone. And you can read these verses later, but here's what happens is every time a crisis hits, Daniel goes, I need my guys, okay? And he runs to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these 4 guys team up in every setting throughout the entire thing. There is something about being connected, and just look up here for a second, okay? Here's the key. They have convictions. They also have character. I'm gonna make sure you memorize this. They have strong convictions that leads to strong character, but they also need great connections. Great connection strengthens everything and enables things to happen. And these guys team up to change the world. And why that's a big thing is this. See this brick? In the last 18 months, for a whole lot of, I think, sincere reasons sometime, you and I have had the brick of disconnection for people thrown into our lives. Would you agree? Okay? And for health reasons, that's legit. But when that becomes a lifestyle that you don't break back out of, you're in real trouble because you end up isolated. And so I want to pastor you all. So would you just look right up here and listen with everything you've got, okay? Because lack of relationship leads to emotional health breakdown. As a matter of fact, there's a book called Bowling Alone by a guy named Robert Putnam. And here's what he said. The single most common finding from a half-century's research on life satisfaction, not just from the U.S., but around the world, is this. Your happiness is best predicted by the health and breadth of your relationships. He said emotional health gets crushed in us when you're not connected. And boy, I tell you what, church, America needs to hear this right now, okay? Emotionally isolated, disconnected people are more prone to 7 destructive things. Here they are, okay, on the screen. Depression, anxiety, loneliness, low self-esteem, substance abuse, sexual addiction, difficulties with eating and difficulties with sleeping, okay? In other words, those things are tragic, okay? Now, what's interesting is this. Listen to how strong this is, okay? People with bad health habits, like cigarette smoking, overeating, high blood pressure, physical inactivity, people with bad health habits, but that are connected, live longer than people with great health habits, but they're disconnected and isolated. So, no, I'm not recommending you go out, start smoking, overeating. But the poster boy, by the way, the poster boy for this is Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill, deeply connected, had a wonderful marriage, great relationship with his family. He was deeply connected to his friends and his country and his work, but his health habits were terrible. His diet was awful. He smoked cigars all the time, drank way too much, had weird sleep habits, was completely sedentary, but he lived to be like something like 90 years old. Matter of fact, somebody asked him one time, Winston, do you ever exercise? And he glared at them and said, my only exercise is serving as a pallbearer for my friends who died while they were exercising. Now, I'm not recommending that, but there is incredible power unleashed in joy in your life when you connect. That makes sense? Which is why I'm so glad you're here this morning, okay? And Scott, you want to come on out? Because we're going to give you a chance to actually put this to practice, okay? Now, nobody move. Nobody move. I want to say one thing, and then we're going to try to apply this as a church. This first message, Operation Erase and Replace, If you're in high school, if you're in middle school, if you are a parent or grandparent, or if you're living in a culture, this Daniel chapter 1 is like ripped from today's headlines. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. And these three things, convictions, character, and connections, when all three of them come together in your life, it's game changing. Okay? And Scott, I saw this happen in Africa. There's a village that we've been to repeatedly called Dandora. It's the most dangerous place I've been in Africa. Matter of fact, we got there, the guards that were with us told us do not leave the church premises, okay? So we're with Chris Brown, so Chris Brown, of course, boom, he's out, and takes my son with him, all this kind of stuff. Well, while all this is going on, this lady named Hilga, who was large and in charge in that church, she comes over and she says, hey, welcome back. And she looks at me, she goes, what are you doing here? I go, we fell in love with you guys last year. We sent a team to help rebuild your church. And I said, we're back. She goes, nobody comes back. They say they're going to come back. Nobody's ever come back. Why are you here? Oh, we just love you guys, wanted to help, this kind of stuff. We've been back there repeatedly. You all help. We'll show you some pictures sometime. You help. We sent business people here. Our business people, my kids, and a bunch of their villages, team built their church in this amazing thing. And then she said, come here, I got to show you something. She grabs me, and she hauls me over to this fence, and she goes, when war broke out in Kenya last year, she goes, what do you see? And I said, every single thing here is burned. Everything's torched. She said, except for what? And I said, wow, except for the church. And this woman said, you know why? When war broke out, we all hid in our homes with fear. And the mobs were torching all the buildings, and they started to walk toward the church, and this is where the kids get help. She said, so we all none of the guys, all the women, we all ran out of our house, ran in front of this church, folded our arms, and said, you can burn anything else down. You are not building this. This is where the kids get help. And the mob walked by, okay? When you become a person where you're going, I will live with convictions no matter what, no matter where. I will live with character no matter what, no matter where. And I will live connected and impacting no matter what. You can save a church in Kenya from being burned to the ground by angry mobs burning everything down. Yeah. Okay? It's a great way to live. Okay? And so just to get you connected, we have a couple things we want you to know.
Yeah, we believe not only can it happen in Kenya, but it also can happen in Sacramento. And so we need you to jump in the team with us. And so Ray was talking about character and conviction, but connected as well. So if you're here today and you are not connected here at Bayside, we're here to help you. And so you might look around this room and say, well, there's all these other people, they're doing it. And that is the easy thing to say, but bigger than that is that you need to jump in, because when you jump in, God starts to do amazing things in and through you. So here's what we have, is on your way out today, we have a number of our staff out there and a number of volunteers, just like you sitting in here. At one point, they sat in the seats. Now they're out there to help you get connected. And all we need you to do is walk out and then say, use me. We'll answer any questions you have, help find what your gifts are, and plant you in there. It might be that you're going to go and hold babies. What a great place to serve. It might be you're here to help people as they come in late to service, find a seat so they can hear the amazing message. It might be you going out and being a small group leader, but we would love for you to get connected around here, because when 1 + you happen, amazing things are in store for this church. And I'd say this last thing for you is because we know kind of what happens around here at Bayside is you hear this and you're like, yeah, I'll do that next week. Well, guess what? We're still going to be out there next week to sign you up to join into our team. Or you might be like, yeah, I'll just avoid the courtyard and I'll go through the front doors. Well, guess what? We're out there as well, and our staff is ready to sign you up. Here's our key to you. Don't leave here today without joining our team, because we are better with you than without you, and we are better when you are connected with us.
That's exactly right. The other thing I want to say is this. This series is a 3-week series. It's not just Sunday morning, okay? We have some parts where this Operation Erase and Replace is very concerning to me, okay? Are any of you parents or grandparents, okay? I am shooting a thing that will be released on Tuesday morning, and it basically is, what do you do as a parent to protect this generation no matter what? Too many parents, look up here, Too many parents are trying to prepare the road for the child instead of the child for any road they end up on. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. That will be released. I have a podcast. It's free. It's called the Ray Johnson Leadership Podcast. It'll be released on that on Tuesday morning. The other thing, part of this is this, just getting great information and input into your marriage, okay? So who's married? Okay, we have a marriage conference coming up.
It's really easy. September 10th and 11th. You don't want to miss it. Levi Lesko, Mark and Aaron Clark, Kurt and Kelly Harlow, Ray and Carol, everyone's going to be there. There's a card in your bulletin, and if you need help registering, right in the center of the lobby, our staff is there for you as well.
That's right. And everybody, we hope you have a good day. We will see you in the courtyard because armed guards aren't letting you go to your cars. God bless. Have a good day.